Уважаемые участники, просим вас занять места в зале и отключить звуковые сигналы мобильных устройств. Уважаемые участники, убедительно просим вас занять места в зале и отключить звуковые сигналы мобильных устройств. Пленарное заседание начнется с минуты на минуту. Убедительно просим вас занять места в зале и отключить звуковые сигналы мобильных устройств. Уважаемые участники форума, просим вас занять места в зале и отключить звуковые сигналы мобильных устройств. Уважаемые участники, убедительно просим вас занять места в зале. Пленарное заседание начнется с минуты на минуту. Уважаемые участники форума, убедительно просим вас занять места в зале пленарных заседаний. Уважаемые участники, убедительно просим вас занять места в зале и отключить звуковые сигналы мобильных устройств. Пленарное заседание начнется с минуты на минуту. Уважаемые участники, убедительно просим вас занять места в зале и отключить звуковые сигналы мобильных устройств. Пленарное заседание «Сибирь. Экономика будущего» начнется с минуты на минуту. Убедительно просим вас занять места в зале. Дамы и господа, для приветственного слова приглашается губернатор Красноярского края Александр Викторович Ус.
Уважаемые коллеги,
dear colleagues, dear friends,
добрый день.
Good afternoon. I'm really glad to welcome you here within the Krasnoyarsk Economic Forum. Thank you for coming here. Thank you for the fact that we are all together. Based on the details of the registration within the forum, Within the halls of our Siberian Federal University, we have not less than 1,800 participants present. By our estimates, considering our online format, we would have not less than 2,500 participants. And this is quite a record number of the participants. And I suppose it tells us about two particular things. First of all, about the high interest to the big continent, which is Siberia, which is the support region of our country. And the second thing is that we are really confident about the prospects and the future of this macro region. Of course, for now, we are going through really hard, difficult period. But if to see our new history, then we can see we have had lots of such difficult periods, unfortunately. In the start of the 1990s, when we were coming from the planned socialist economy to the market economy, this path has never ever before or further been passed by anyone. And the country was really strained and intense, but we did it. Difficult consequences of the mortgage crisis of 2007, 2008, which really hit the world economic system and influenced our own business and affairs. But we did it as well. And we have a quite a fresh event of 2 years ago when we had empty airports, empty streets of the cities during the COVID-19 pandemic. And we managed to live it through as well. And I'm really sure that those challenges we are having for today will pass someday. And Siberia, considering our taiga, which is the lungs of our planet, considering our geographic position, considering the uniqueness and people of our region who are named by the president of our country as the golden fund of our country. So our Siberia will stay forever. And let's today, considering the fundamental prospects, speak about Siberia. Meaning, of course, and speaking about those challenges which we are going through for today, I would like to wish all of you fruitful work, optimism, and confident vision to the future. Let's start.
Siberia, that is the territory which is really competitive and has a potential development in this way. And this is a strategic policy of the Russian Federation which was outlined by Vladimir Putin, the president of the Russian Federation. Our president said that the development of the Far East and Siberia, that is our prospect for the future 21st century. And as Sergei Shoigu said, that is quite important to develop new clusters, and we are developing our road infrastructure and transport infrastructure, considering the North Path as way. We are having new cities, we are having the new points for the world development, we are having the new business projects being implemented and a new business environment being formed. We are especially looking at the technological procedure and transformation of technological industries. We are providing the new standards for the environmental protection, and we are having the new changes in the human capital, because people, that is the most important thing in the Russian Federation. What can we do today to provide the further development? What can we do in the context of a new history? Which resources do we need? Siberia, economy of the future. What will it be? We start.
Для участия в пленарном заседании приглашаются президент Центра экономики и инфраструктуры Владимир Косой, Заместитель председателя Государственной Думы Федерального собрания Российской Федерации Шалбан Караул. Президент, председатель правления группы компаний Сигежа Михаил Шамулин. Старший вице-президент, руководитель Норильского дивизиона ПАО ГМК «Норильский никель» Николай Уткин. Основатель компаний «Русал», группа «ГАЗ» и фонда «Вольное дело» Олег Дерипаска. Губернатор Красноярского края Александр Ус. Модератор пленарного заседания, президент Центра стратегических разработок Владислав Онищенко.
Добрый день, уважаемые коллеги.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I'm really glad to see all of you present here, and we have really many people. Unfortunately, not everybody could join us here, but we have many participants online, and among our participants, we have the head economist of FBRF, Andrei Klopach. We have the CEO of Siberian coal and geotech company, Stepan Solzhenitsyn, and we would also have the Deputy Foreign Minister of the Russian Federation, Alexander Pankin. And now I would like to give a word to the plenipotentiary envoy to the President of the Russian Federation, the Siberian Federal District, Anatoly Sereshev. Anatoly, please start.
Организаторы 18-го Красноярского экономического форума.
So we're starting our Krasnoyarsk Economic Forum, and regardless of the geopolitical situation we have worldwide, we have decided to anyway organize the Krasnoyarsk Economic Forum, which is a significant event for the Krasnoyarsk region, and it gathers many experts, scholars, and representatives of business and state authorities. This forum has become an authoritative world platform to work out the decisions and solutions on the challenges of the Siberian region. And Vladimir Putin has many times said that our further development, that is, the development to the east and the improvement of the life of the Siberian population, that is one of the priorities of our work within the government. So, dear colleagues, all of us should mobilize our efforts, and we should face the challenges of the new history. As previously, Russia was the east of Europe, but now we are becoming more the north region. And of course, the growth of the economy of Siberia would definitely increase in the coming years. Recently, the experts and the state authorities have discussed different initiatives on the development of the Siberian Federal District. Our unique resources, our unique energy resources allow us to provide new processing industries, high technologies, and some other new interests. Considering restrictions and sanctions, we should more effectively construct the opportunities of the enterprises of Siberia to use new technologies. Our regions have many opportunities for the input replacement, which is now a priority in the economic policy of our government. For example, in Irkutsk, Novosibirsk, and Tomsk regions, we have the new production of semiconductors. We have a new electrical telecommunication technologies which are being produced in Krasnoyarsk region, Omsk Oblast, and Novosibirsk Oblast. every 2 years we have a new import replacing technologies which are being produced by the military industry. And this work should be accelerated to introduce more import replacing production. And we have a basis for that in our region. In modern times, we have a special roles devoted to the transport infrastructure of the Siberia Federal District, which can stimulate Russian economy within the international framework. And of course, Siberia can and should show its potential as an intellectual strength of the country. We are having high institutions and universities. The results of work of these are being in demand worldwide. And what is important, that is the quality of life of the Siberian population. And I would like for the participants of the Economic Forum to discuss the key directions of the development of the economy within the Siberia and work out the solutions to the challenges within this geopolitical vagueness. I'm sure that your proposals would find its way in practice and would help our country to use this sanctional crisis as an economic opportunity to define the new vectors of the development of Siberia and Russia on the whole. Thank you for your attention.
К сожалению, в связи с сложившейся ситуацией к нам не смогла присоединиться офлайн Виктория Валерьевна Абрамченко, но так как повестка форума крайне значима, она передала нам видеосообщение.
Forum is really topical, so she has the message for us. Dear guests and participants of the Krasnoyarsk Economic Forum, I'm really glad to meet you here. And today, in the heart of Russia, in Siberia, so we discuss economic, social, and ecological issues and challenges which Russia faces today. So we are used to actually addressing these challenges, and we can make challenges into possibilities. This is the world history. And sanctions, in spite of sanctions, we have mechanisms which allow us to stand against all the actions against Russian citizens and economy. Thanks to the experience and the import replacement, and sanctions actually gave a trigger to the development of economy, of the inner production, launching new technologies and reaching the human capital. So we developed the first measures, which focuses on the most vulnerable industries. So we support business, middle and small businesses. And what is also important is releasing the administrative barriers for the government. And the government is actually now dealing with it. So dear friends, industrial, agricultural, investment potential and financial system of our countries can cope with all challenges and the pressure. So we won't stop the implementation of investment projects, the development of industries, of national projects, despite the desire of our international partners. So now we form the new economy policies. The government is working on it. So we need the fragments for the development. One of the priority territories is priority Siberia, and Siberia has very competitive advantages, and they allow us to have the sustainable development for our economy. First of all, so these are the high resource potential. Siberia has 85% of all Russia of silver and platinum and lead and molybdenum and others, 17 of nickel and other precious natural resources. Siberia has the biggest deposits of timber and water resources. Industrial potential is on a high level, and we have a very important resource centers. So the district has the resources for the cheap power, and it's very important for the implementation of the big investment projects. So, dear colleagues, you know that the government is working very hard to work on the new strategy of Siberia development. We won't stop this project, and our key target now is to implement the potential, to realize the potentials, and to keep the citizens and actually attracting new professionals. So what are our solutions? So we have 8 industrial clusters. These are timber, processing of aluminium, precious metals, oil and gas, non-ferrous metals, tourism, agriculture, and coal. And thanks to all the measures of increasing the investment activity and launching new projects and new economical cycles, we plan to have more than 450,000 new positions, 3 trillion rubles of investments to attract. The centers and the territories of investment activity for the microregions are defined, and actually we have the potential for the agricultural development, including because of the global change in the climate. We need to use these potentials so to develop the opportunities for the southern Siberia. So also tourism is actually very important. So our pearls of our tourism, so these are Plateau Puturana, Lake Baikal, and others which can attract more tourists here. So our main target, our common target, is to use all the resources for the welfare of our country and our citizens. So to reform our industries, to get new niches, to new development for the new futures and for the future development. And I think that Siberia will be the new flagman for the economy of Russia. And I wish you productive and fruitful work. So really, so in the beginning of the 21st century, Siberia was industrial. First, we saw the continuous appearance of the settlements, which were based on the industrial processes, and actually, so it was deposits and others. But on this, in the 21st century, so we had a lot of issues like social, ecological problems in the last year. So we have this, well, actually, people leave in this district, and actually, so it's not very clear because of the whole international situation. How do we develop export? So what infrastructural projects we need for that? And also the district has huge opportunities in terms of import substitution to have this new innovation in scientific production. And in fact, students from scientific and research centers of Siberia are very famous in our country and abroad. And we can say a lot about the development of Siberian cities, and at the same time the creating of the new urban economy for more comfort conditions to live. So we need to develop creative industries and to have opportunities for the self-implementation of people. So we are not only talking about the 8 clusters which Victoria was talking about. So we must, that all economy should be focused on the complex and intercommunication between industries. So because individuals, so these clusters can't work properly. So we have these addressing measures. It must be in complex so that we can attract new people and actually keep professionals who were born here. And it actually doesn't deny so the realization of new social projects which were set as a priority, and these priorities were set by the President of Russia, Shalban. So what do you think? Well, as we have quite a turbulent situation, and actually with setting new goals before the Siberian district, so should we change or maybe reform or reorganize the project of the development, so with the national projects of Russia? Well, thank you. Well, in fact, so before answering your question, I would like to thank the organizers and the governor of Krasnoyarsk region, Alexander Us, so for this standing on holding this forum, this Krasnoyarsk Economic Forum, and I think that you, Krasnoyarsk citizens, Siberians, you are right that in this situation, in this period, so we must speak about the development. So we must speak that the Siberia will help to develop the power of our country, and we know that we live here, that Siberia is the treasury of Russia. So this is the foundation for the development of Russia. And in these conditions which we are now, so under the big sanctions of Western world, so we must speak about what other inner resources we have. Who do we have? Who are our allies? Who are our partners with whom we need to build these alliances, this interaction, communication, and I'm convinced that geographical position of our country, especially so the western direction, is very interesting. And well, in Krasnoyarsk Economic Forum discussions, we talked about it. So we had a lot of foreign delegations here, and some of our businessmen actually used these opportunities. They used this platform to develop further. And actually, so it is really important now that we would talk about the development of our country. And it's not in vain that our president said that we can't defeat Russia, so we can only destroy it from inside. And he's right. He's right in terms of that we mustn't cry out loud that everything is bad, so it's all destroying, so it's getting worse. I think that that panic is the main enemy of our situation, and the State Duma will actually adopt a law saying that social networks and information media, so those who want to be presented, so they must write the truth, they must pull the truth, basing on the truth and not on emotions and not on the organized lie. And actually, it will get like 15-year sentence in prison. So if they post fake news, and we know so that our fathers during war, so they were shot. So because of the panic during war, and I think that this approach is really important. So because we need to develop. This is the first thing. Second thing. So in these difficult conditions, we must understand that army and population are united. So it was like this, it is like this, and it will be like this. And that our young people so are doing very important things. So they are in the avant-garde of all this, and if not for them, so what everything that President said about saying about this special war operation in Donbass and in Lugansk Republic for the defacilization of Ukraine is connected that in these countries, unfortunately, say the people so get to authorities who stand on anti-Russian policies, and so pro-Western countries, they would never not use this situation, and sooner or later this war conflict will be on their conditions, would be on their conditions. If we would not said that this situation for the 8 years, Russian population was genocided, and children who were living in Donetsk and Lugansk, and I think that these actions that the president was right here, and the second thing, we should support our army. And it's very important to know that today, so we don't have another allies except for Navy and the Army. We have partners, we have allies which we should build economic relations with. We must build the mutual profit based on our cooperations, but our friends are Navy and the Army, and we should understand it, and not to make the atmosphere for our soldiers when our warriors came from Afghanistan, and we were starting there, so we didn't send you there, so it's not like that. So we were always famous to you that Russia was standing on truth, and the truth is ours, and the second thought is to speak about the development of our country so that the population and army are united is one thing. And the third one is a Siberian, as a person who actually grew up here, I understand the potential of my hometown, of my home region, and this potential must be articulated. And the first thing that we need to have the entrepreneurship, so we develop here, and not that we would disturb them. So want
добиваться того, чтобы здесь, у себя на родине, наши предприимчивые земляки имели возможность создавать
people must create here so good industrial and production platforms, and actually, so this is what we are talking about now. And I would like to point out that Sergei Koshugetovich Shoigu said that by the order of the President, so he organized the commission under his leadership for the development of Siberia, and actually part of this commission, and I want this commission to work systematically and would create organizational and other forms, so that in the end, so under this commission, we had federal program for the Siberian development, and I'm convinced that we need to convince and to speak about our actions, and I think that Krasnoyarsk Economic Forum so would encourage for the creation of this programs for the development of our micro-region, and I would like to speak about Angaro-Yenisei region, and thanks to our government, Alexander Victory, so under him, so we were talking about this Yenisei Siberia, Caucasia, and Tiva Republic, so united under the Yenisei Siberia term, so we actually had a range of initiatives. These economic projects are founded for the realization, so for them to be implemented. So we need to start it. So we need some like
возможность продвижения этих проектов, и мы сами развернемся. Именно заключается в том, чтобы наши города, они не чахли и не были такими городами, которым есть недовольство. Только благополучием мы можем привлечь молодежь к житию в Сибири. Поэтому очень уместно здесь продолжение национальных проектов. И наверняка в новых условиях они подлежат определенным коррекциям, но я бы не хотел упреждать ситуацию, но в начале нашей беседы, дискуссии хотел бы только вот эти тезисы озвучить и сказать в добрый путь Красноярский экономический форум. Я всех вас приглашаю к диалогу, дискуссии, и очень бы хотел, чтобы мы поддержали наших ребят, которые сегодня на передовой.
Если экономическое развитие Сибири пойдет так,
is given for today, and we would have new industrial classes, then it would anyway give new volumes of the production. By different estimates, we have a higher volume, so the higher volume of the production of about 50 million tons by 2030. So, Vladimir, what do you think the transport infrastructure, which was inherited by our country from the Soviet times and during the Russian times, is this transport infrastructure enough to implement these giant targets that we set? Or do we need, first of all, to have these prospective industrial projects start working with this transport infrastructure?
Добрый день.
Good afternoon. So, you know, I would like to say, first of all, about the following issues. In fact, we are discussing the issues connected with the economy here, the issues connected with the changes of the future, what will be the new factors within the economic restrictions and sanctions. And what's the most important for now is that we don't really understand what will happen in 2 weeks. And of course, we should see the fog going away for us to understand what logistic chains would be. The main thing we can concentrate on is that for today, it's quite clear we would have a particular spatial change of the transport infrastructure. And considering this, I would like to say that for Siberia, that will be good because the special development of the country for now would go more further to the central regions of the country and to the far of our country. And here we have a set of issues. So this is first of all issues connected with logistics, because up to this period, the main logistical centers of the Russian Federation were St. Petersburg, Moscow, Rostov-na-Don, and some other. But now we would go to the far regions, to the east, and considering the initiatives of the Minister of Transport, they are not fully supported for now, but they are moving further, and this is the formation of the transport logistical centers, and they would go to the east. The second issue is that if we speak about the transport infrastructure of the railroad, which is Trans-Siberian Railway, first of all, I don't really think that we would have any kind of radical change. I do even think that if we speak about such loads as coal, or we would even have an intense volume of transfers. Anyway, we would have a new agenda, and those projects that have started being implemented considering the development of the city public infrastructure, for example, the project of Norilsk city, of Bernal city, of Krasnoyarsk city, such as underground projects. All these projects will now be those directions which we would anyway have to concentrate on, regardless of our view. And as for me, the person who has always been connected with the transport infrastructure, I can see the positive sides of that. And I understand that for now we would have a change of the emphasis. And some of those participants being present, we have had many discussions considering whether we need to invest in the transport infrastructure. So I can say that now we will have to invest in the transport infrastructure. And the last thesis I would like to stand on, considering the future of economic development in the regional aspect. So we know that the situation connected with the COVID-19, we could see that the most vulnerable points in our country are the central regions. And if we speak about Moscow and St. Petersburg, they would suffer a lot. If we speak about the industrial cities of Siberia, I can say that the situation here will get better, and for sure will be better than in the central regions, and we would be able to develop infrastructure and transport infrastructure here. Thanks.
Спасибо большое. Александр Викторович, вы не так давно написали статью о том, как на формирование экономики considering the formation of the economy and the influence, собственно говоря, крупной сырьевой компании.
Economy of Siberia, which was made by
экономическим сердцем
different companies. We know that Krasnoyarsk region is the heart of Siberia, and you produce more than 60% of GNP, and of course this increase is being given by more than a quarter of the investments, which are making the biggest part of all the investments. What additionally can be done, and how can we use the experience we have to provide better economic potential and breakthrough in Siberia? Thanks. So the paper which you mentioned that was written by me before, but I suppose this urgency and topicality of these issues is not less for today. Anyway, I would like to speak about the transport infrastructure, and not only transport infrastructure, and I would like to speak about piggy bank. For now, we know that store, that is good, but the main piggy bank, that is our infrastructure, that's what gives potential to the development, and it doesn't depend on the sanctions. And regardless the problems we are having for now, I think we should definitely move on with developing the infrastructure projects, because that is the additional money flow, additional vacancies and jobs, and that is additional development. And considering large enterprises of our country and our region, there was the situation that for many years these enterprises have been the drivers of the Siberian and the Russian economies, and many of them are the national champions. We can name them. So Shalban Valerievich mentioned the complex project of the Yenisei Siberia, that is a gigantic project. The investments for its implementations make the Yenisei Siberia stand in one row of the largest macro regions of the world: China, India, regions of North America. And these are investments of these real enterprises who are ready to implement them. I would only like to make one comment, Shaban. We shouldn't be given the start to this project, because we have already started this project, and most of these projects are being implemented. And of course, I suppose that the participants of our plenary session would mention that as well. So 12 trillion up to 2035. These are particular figures which we are sure of, with the new jobs, with the new effects, and I'm sure that the country and the region would follow this path. But what is important, that is considering Siberia, we should say, except for tax incomings, what is important, that is demographic increase within the region, because implementing raw material projects can give a breakthrough for the demographic increase, because mostly that is a rotation way of working. And that's why I'm sure that we should use this readiness of the large enterprises to the front breakthrough. Only if those projects are implemented in the economy of Siberia on the whole, then we would be able to speak about the front increase and breakthrough. You know, I've been telling it many times within the forums as well, but I suppose at this particular moment it's especially important. We have quite clear figures, for example, in Norway, in Canada, when implementing the projects of using the raw materials for each particular dollar implemented, they give $9 of the investments to some other industries. Why? Because together with the exploration of the raw materials under the government leadership, that is provided in constructing the industrial chamber. So this is processing production, that is R&D, and this is employment and service functions. So this one line should always exist. And this line for the raw materials giants and for large enterprises, that is the most important task and target for them, which can provide further development. You know, I'm asking the question, why haven't we done that before? If we have a 40% rentability, what should we be in concern of? We can provide the export abroad, and we shouldn't be spending money to our budget, but that's what we should end up here. And I would like to give you an example. Not the richest industry. Siberian Agricultural Group from Tomsk, they have decided to construct the production of the deep processing of grain. And agriculture.
Что означает завод по глубокой переработке зерна?
20% production for the advanced processing of grain. What does it mean? So 20% of the world biodegradable plastics, that is a strategic decision. Victoria mentioned 8 clusters. Some of these clusters are industrial clusters, and I'm sure that each industrial segment of these ones mentioned have their own development, so processing, R&D, service. Russian aluminium company, they have started implementing the project of technological valley. Of course, for now, the tempo would be even higher. Synergy Group will be mentioning their project, providing timber and chemical complex. That is the basis for the production of the highest class, which is in demand worldwide. Norilsk Nickel, they have the production of the processing industry abroad. And as far as I know, in Finland, why don't we place such a kind of production in our country and in Siberia, for example? Here we have, for example, Mikhail Dyagilev, the head of our Craftsman.
Самое крупное афинажное производство по ряду позиций не только страны и мира.
So this is the production of non-ferrous metals, and that is the industry which is known worldwide. We explore 75 tons of gold in our region. Why don't we, together with Norilsk Nickel, together with Polizolota, because the head of Polizolota, Mikhail Grachev, is absent here, why don't we make not only an affiliate company, but why don't we provide our own gold mine connected with the global competences in this area? I'm not going to further promote these measures because everybody knows about them. That R&D, for many times our large enterprises, they prefer to buy the best technologies abroad because, the borders were open, and after perestroika period, they went abroad, and considering our universities and considering our laboratories, we didn't have the good work provided here. Of course, that's led to the fact that we are not ready to provide new technological solutions tomorrow, but that's the experience we should take into account and think about research and development in Siberia Federal University, in the universities of Tomsk and Novosibirsk, and find new ways for us, for our scholars, for our producers, together cooperate and work for the economy of our country based on the national priorities and national opportunities, not only in the military industry. And we can do a lot in this area. By the way, in Siberia Federal University, we have a good lab, a good R&D center, which was provided by Schlumberger company. Schlumberger, you know? Why a foreign company did this R&D center and we can't? And what I'm offering you to further work in our university, and we would like to create a committee together with the producers and representatives of large enterprises to understand what we can do together. Considering services, we have lots of services, lots of presented here. For example, Polish Gold, they had a day of supplier, and more than 100 enterprises took part in this day. And some of our companies, of course, can't still reach the demands of our oil processing industry, but we should grow them and grow their potential, and a bit about the social role which can be given by these projects. Some big financial groups have already started transferring their headquarters to our country. So two decisions. The foundation of the Siberian Federal University and this project, they help to increase the population of our city for more than 250,000 people of population, because we have new jobs, new vacancies, new developments. By the way, previously, each summer, each spring, we had the caravans of ships transporting some production and supplies, and we should start it once again to the far regions of our country. And concluding, not answering your question, but just giving comments, I'm sorry for being too long. First of all, we should think about the competitiveness of Siberia on the level of some particular geographical particulars. Some people say Siberia is really far, and I've always said, is it really bad? And Shalban, for example, mentioned that we are only 3 hours from Beijing, and that is really good, by the way. And we are really close to the Asian market. That is a substantial part of our world, and that's what we should take into account. During the Great Patriotic War, which we had, Siberia had a great economic development because many enterprises were evacuated here due to the fact that this region is really far from Europe and from the large industrial centers, and that is a priority. And if we think about it, we have lots of such priorities. That's quite simple. Climate, cold climate. That is a priority as well. And we have lots of power here, mining, cryptocurrency, stock exchanges, new financial centers. That is not utopia, that is a new opportunity we are having here. And if we start speaking about IT, if we look at Belarus, which is one of the most advanced countries in the software and IT sphere, but they don't have, for example, GLONASS, which is being produced within our territory. They don't have satellites which are being produced in the city of Zheleznogorsk, nearby Krasnoyarsk. And if we think we can find lots of conditions and preconditions which would provide a good basis for our economy, and we can do that. Thank you.
Александр Викторович предложил достаточно большую палитру возможностей управления взаимодействия
development and of business and government integrations, which is actually can be considered quite positively, and also it will need some joint efforts and resources to be allocated, and this program is quite long-term. And often, so we speak about that business is saying that if we have state support, it's not long-term and it's difficult to plan for long-term and so on and so on. So, Mikhail, so let's get back to business. Let's face business and how business sees the situation and how to build the development of Siberia in the future economy. What do you think? So what from the list suggested by Alexander is worth implementing, and should government support business and how to build this system of support, and how can we build this cooperation system? So maybe it mustn't just help, but to release some obstacles. Well, good afternoon to all the guests of the forum. So Sigeja Group works with timber processing, so one of the biggest companies in this industry, and the involvement of the timber, which is under our control, is actually an amount of resources, so we can process. So we have a first place in the world, and in Russia it's about 25 cubic meters of the timber area. So 18 of it is in Siberian region, in Krasnoyarsk region, and in Kursk region. And Siberian federal districts is a part of country, so where the potential of deepening of timber processing, wood processing, and other. So it's the biggest one in the country. So because in the European part and in the northwest the process is quite high. So because there are some cellulose and other industrials of timber, ply industries, and plywood, and the group in Bratsk is actually doing the sewing of timber and export of timber in China and other countries, for example, Egypt. And in front of us, we had a huge goal to change this situation, and we start these changes starting from the construction of the biggest biochemical complex, cellulosic plant, and those opportunities of the raw material in region allows us to have the 2 million of finished product. So actually it has some logistics and financial challenges. So logistics, what to provide the raw materials. So we have about 10 million cubic meters of the balanced wood and 2 million of finished product to ship. So we actually had the question to the ships, railways, and other means of transportations. And answering the question about where and what is the support from the government to implement such projects as quickly as possible is actually these logistic hubs. So development of logistic flux, and my colleague said that we must expect that the vector of development of the whole logistics from west to east, and the load on all transport hubs will have some traffic jams, and we actually see it now, and we require big and quick investments to develop these transportation hubs. But it's not impossible, and one of the topics we actually are working on is actually to renew the way along the river, from Igarka and Dudinka, to have this north way, to ship it to European and East, mostly it's China, And on the north, so we don't have it. The development of the infrastructure is destroyed, so and we need to renew it, so to rebuild it, and for these investment projects which we plan here in Siberia. Then, so with the question of financing, so because to construct such a complex we need about 300 million rubles of investments. Actually, so depending on where this north path is built. So, and as for the current stage, so it won't be, there wasn't payback, so because we need to speak about subsidies, percentage interest and others, so and we so would like to have such support. Besides, so the question of equipment, so because historically, in the last 30-40 years of development of wood industry, so we worked with import equipment, European one, so we don't know so how the current situation will allow us to work with this. So we have some Chinese alternatives, and again, so we speak about the localization and actually developing of Russian machinery. So because a lot of equipments and units can be produced here, and the country so which produces a huge amount of timber is not producing their own equipment for the process, and this is not right. So we must not only produce it, so but we actually can export it. So because actually, so there are 2 or 3 players on this market in each direction, and actually, so there is some space so to have the strong companies in this area. Besides this biotechnical complex, which I talked about, we also plan to build a new plywood plant. So on the 200 cubic meters is which is called Cresfan, and also new plywood for the other type of timber to process. So this is a hub, so which is formed that we so we're not working with kebok, solog, and well, we really necessary to have this capacity. So this is our plans. So the development of this project is ongoing, and the current situation so can actually will bring some changes to it. So, but these challenges are not terrifying us, and we need to deal with these projects. And the potential of Siberia is huge, and we plan to develop the capacities of our production. Well, Mikhail said a lot about infrastructure and investment side of these development projects, but actually, so we shouldn't forget about people, so people who will work there on these projects. And hugely, so this is a question of improving of human capital in the middle term. So people so who would like to come here to work, so when more qualified human resources, and this is actually a question so we need to deal with, that we have to monitor to address this issue. Andrei Krepich, so well, considering your experience and knowledge in the human resources and the projects which you dealt with, can you comment what other additional measures of social support and development of social sphere must be implemented so that Siberia so would realize its potential and such huge investment projects would be possible? Thank you. So all measures which are now ongoing in some regions, from the Far East region, federal district. So these are increased maternity capital, and this for these Far East hectares. This is the model, which is different from the hectares which were given from the settlers to Siberia in the beginning of the 20th century, and this allows to settle down Siberians here in region. So because we only see that people are leaving regions to the European part, and it would actually attract people from Europe, European part of Russia, and maybe some people from the post-Soviet area. So, and we actually need to form the support for families, so that the maternity capital, so not only not on the first and second child, but also for third and fourth, considering the regional coefficients. It must be a system of mortgages. So because we have a 2% mortgage in Far East, but in Siberian, and especially in the North Siberian regions like Norilsk, Krasnoyarsk, it must be privileged. And well, we have this like 20% of the central bank interest, so they require some additional measures. So because with these interests, only few people can actually use the mortgages. Another thing that is also very important, even of bigger importance, and actually improving the educational scientific centers. Our educational potential is in the south of Siberia, it's Novosibirsk, Tomsk, and here we need to invest, so they must be built, constructors, but it's actually in terms of scientists, university teachers, equipment, so which should be in this education, so because they will be able to cope with some fundamental goals, so with in Russian and Siberian science, because in this eternal frost, and well, we have some ideas and some suggestions, but it didn't start yet. So we live in these conditions when climate is changed, and we need to support people who can actually deal with this, to conduct systematic research. And in this case, investment in science in Siberian size would be a driver, so it would make life more interesting. People would stay here and not leave to Yekaterinburg, St. Petersburg, and Moscow, so or they would come to the scientific trips. And the quality of urban infrastructure and the Ministry of Constructing is actually lower, twice lower than Moscow's, for example. So of course, so we can do it quickly. But this is a complex goal. It includes city transports, it's actually the communication spaces, architecture, but Siberian cities must be the attraction cities, attraction spots, so to actually promote other cities' constructions like the satellite cities. And actually Sergei Shoigu spoke about it. So when we construct big cities, we need some human resources, new citizens, so that we won't just relocate people from one city to another. So this is briefly what I want to say. So these three key directions. Thank you, Andrei.
As we are speaking about the special development and city development, then, of course, we should speak considering the experience of Norilsk city and considering the plans for the 2021 and 2035. Considering the development of Norilsk city, it will demand lots cash flows from private business, and considering the budget sources that will take 81 billion rubles, and considering from the private business, that is the rest part, and the most active participant, that is no-risk nickel. And mostly here we are speaking about the improvement of the environmental issue within no-risk. That is, first of all, the sulfur project, which is being implemented within the city to decrease the sulfur emissions in the city. Is it really well implemented? What can you say? And can we then transfer such kind of the projects to further improve other cities of Siberia? And are these investments really important for us to provide the economy of the future in Siberia? Thank you. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Considering no-risk nickel, that is the main topic for us always on the constant basis, that is Siberia, the economy of the future. All of these we are always thinking about, because everyone knows that no-risk nickel is a local, this is the driver of the Krasnoyarsk region, and we are going to further prove our nickname. And of course, we are going to further implement the projects which you have previously mentioned and which are now being implemented or have been approved. And today in the risk division, except for sulfur project, we also have large-scale projects connected with the increase of the volumes of the production, that is construction of the new plants, that is refurbishment of old plants. And so together with environmental projects, we are also developing the production. Of course, you can't be present within the territory and not take into account the project of the renovation of North City, which we have mentioned. Of course, and the new project which has been started in implementing in 2021, that is Clean Norilsk, Clean Arctics, Clean Norilsk, and we are investing into cleaning the territory of the city. And I would like to speak about several issues of these projects. And first of all, that is the social, economic complex plan of the development of the city, as Norilsk nickel is one of the main producers in the city. We are actively being involved within these projects. I would like to remind that the company, the expenses for these projects are about 270 billion rubles, taking into account the expenses of the company of the whole of more than 31 billion rubles. And of course, these are really big expenses, and that is not only the refurbishment of the residential area, that is refurbishment of the infrastructure of the city. And that is quite a good example of the effective partnership. As for the complex plan, it provides the implementation of several projects, and some of them have already started being implemented in 2021. And we have quite a high level of cooperation between the regional authorities, municipality of Norilsk. It helped us to quickly start implementing this project in 2021. That's why it's really important that we are doing not only this monthly work, but investment works as well. And we would like to start physical works this particular year, and that was quite a high risk, quite a high challenge. And it's really good that we have already started implementing it in 2021. And consider modernization of utility service. We have also started doing this work, considering collectors, infrastructure and its refurbishment. Considering the renovation area, the company is not just bearing the expenses, is not like acting as a wallet, but we are a full-fledged participant of this project, where we sign agreements, where we construct, and we have the necessary infrastructure for that. and we are fully responsible to put into operation these new objects, which we have already mentioned, and for lateral agreement has been produced, and we would like to sound out some of the additional projects. This is the Acting Museum of Modern Art, this is the concert hall, this is the Lyceum, which will be named after Dolgih for sure, and that is the development of additional social spaces. This is the renovation of our University of Norilsk, that is the development of university activity in cooperation, like Alexander Usu mentioned, in cooperation with Siberia Federal University, and we think that is a new trend in direction and development of our education, and here we are investing additional 150 billion rubles in it. Considering the economy of the future, we are still actively doing not only social work, but we are implementing environmental projects. In 2021, the Board of Directors, we approved the strategy for the change in the environment and climate of Norilsk, and considering the frozen materials and cutting the polluting emissions into the air, considering the cultivation of the ground, and considering saving and preserving the biodiversity. That's what we are taking into account and implementing in Norilsk region and Zabaykalsk region, that is being planned up to 2030, includes about 30 projects within this strategy, and the budget for that is 400 billion rubles. And the main budgeting here will go for Norilsk and Krasnoyarsk region, of course. One of the main projects for our company, that is the East project, and that is being implemented. North project, which is being implemented not only in Norilsk but in other regions. For example, in copper plant, this project will be completed in 2025, and these key projects for our main producers cost about 300 billion rubles. We also pay special attention for the safety and reliability of the productions and the venues of the social city infrastructure. And here we are working on the prevention of the emergency situations. As an example, I can mention the project of the company of the automated system of the biotechnological monitoring. We have started implementing it in Norilsk. It allows us to forecast and analyze the state of the frozen ground, and that is really important for the exploration and the development of optics in Russia and worldwide. We can't speak about ecology and can't stay away from it, not mentioning cleaning the territory, city territory and regional territory. The project started in 2021 in Norilsk. We have bought more than 1,000 units of equipment, and it was done in half a year. And we have managed to provide this production. And since October 2021, we have dismantled more than 100 old buildings and cleaned a great, which makes up about 140 football fields, and that is made in the terms of constantly working production. Considering the safety of our environment and preserving biodiversity, we are actively being have started a great research on studying the biotechnology, that we're not going to end up with these projects, and we would like to study the biodiversity of the development centers of the Russian Academy of Science, and this really big climatic
energy transition is not made for people right here, right now, but is done for the idea, not maybe scientifically proved, but for the idea of the future generations, for the whole world. And this is the key global, critical global idea. Ruble is limited now, and we can invest only in one of these, which are, of course, not far from the region. So what are the most fruitful directions for the development in the short term and long term? Russian borders, to make it an isolated country. And we can't say for now if it is a short-term prospect or if it is long-term. Of course, we would like to hope that it is more emotional and propagandist measure, but we don't really know. Maybe that is emotional considering the situation of Ukraine, and it can then get back, but regardless, our future. You asked me, so considering the initiatives that have already been set, considering Siberia and the Far East, so of course, the bet is made, first of all, on the cooperation with our colleagues from the Eurasian Economic Community, and a lot of initiatives have been developed that have already been implemented. These are not just targets, these are particular tasks. These are tasks defined on the highest levels of the state authorities, of the leaders of the countries, of the intergovernmental authorities. So all these issues, all this agenda has already been mentioned by you here, starting from green economy, coming to the environmental issues, to digitalization, providing food security, providing transport infrastructure, eliminating barriers, administrative barriers or some other kind of financial support, providing cooperative enterprises. All these measures, they are being separated into different tasks and roadmaps, and they only reprint particular tasks and targets. And of course, we are making a bet on a deeper integration within our 5 countries of Eurasian Economic Community, but with other allies as well, so the allies from the Commonwealth of Independent States and some other. Siberia, in this case, in all these green transitions, in all this digitalization and economy of knowledge and all of that, Siberia can definitely play a big role, not only in increasing hydrocarbon or some other things, but we can only go further. And of course, we would have new developments in demand, and some technologies we should start producing like today or yesterday to provide import replacement. And we would have, and we would definitely do a better cooperation with our neighbors like China or further neighbors in Asian part of our world. And of course, we're not against the cooperation with Europe, but anyway, we would more transit to the cooperation to the Asian countries. And of course, that would not be an easy thing as well, because for now, we can only see the restrictions, the obstacles in bank system, in some other spheres, and we should live it through. A lot depends on diplomacy, not only Russian ones, but foreign ones, and we hope that this potential of Siberia would be in different spheres, starting from high technologies up to raw material supplies,
and breakthrough developments in the sphere of knowledge. We're not going to isolate ourselves, and we are sure that nobody would be able to isolate the whole country here. In southern borders, in eastern borders, of course, the conditions would be stricter for us, but we would have more of internal opportunities we should also try to use. In this aspect, I should say that the potential of Siberia is really big, not only considering the natural resources, which we have already exploited, but the potential is really huge considering the human potential, the research and development centers, and I suppose they say that this region will be paid more attention by our government further. Foreign ministry, as well as other ministries connected with the external and foreign affairs, would do their best. But a lot of depends on some particular ties of particular regions with foreign countries, with neighboring countries, with different operators. Of course, we would have to change the forms of cooperation, of payments. You know, we have learned, regardless, the Ukrainian conflict was started in 2014, 8 years ago, or so the discussions that started in November of the last year, and the provocation that was made by these counterparts. So I'm not going to further discuss this way to the restrictions we had. But anyway, we were shown long before that it will be quite a difficult path for us, and long ago we have started going away from the dollar payments to ruble payments, and we have started providing more flexibility. That's why I would like to urge you, to urge the whole community of Siberia, the economic community of Siberia, the financial one, the intellectual community of Siberia to cooperate, to unite, and we should have a common, a team understanding the way we can survive in these conditions, which can be either short-term or long-term, so that Siberia could use its potential for our Asian transition and enrich themselves in their direct and indirect sense of, and enrich our country, as Siberia is the heart of our country. And we think that separate companies or some mergers should find the opportunities for the implementation, and here we would have to use not only your own strengths, but the support of the ministries, the foreign ministry, and you know, we're always supporting the regions, and we are trying to advertise and promote the opportunities of the region, starting with the economic opportunities, ending up with the touristic and some other, and we are only ready to work further and cooperate and be with you regardless the distance between us. Thank you. Alexander, can I have one more minute of a discussion with you? So if you're saying that external and foreign affairs would anyway influenced by the situation and will get into the stress, I suppose that the participants of the forum would like to know if you see any kind of improvement in the situation worldwide for now. Of course, we do believe We do believe that there is some kind of improvement and that the stress can't stay forever. So the only question here is what this stress would lead us to. So we should stay conscious and we should always remember who we are, what we can do. I suppose the question here is who gives the path, the government or the business? That's the question not only for Russia, but for other countries as well. We could see the situation that regardless different arguments and so on and so forth, that Western business couldn't sound loud to their governments and states to eliminate those restrictions. So you can see that the business of every country lives without the regulatory way of their own state. And if you violate those restrictions, then you will get some sanctions. And it goes up to all the countries, even to those independent countries. Anyway, business lives within the borders of the government and of the state and its decisions. But I think that if to make this situation even worse, if to try putting an embargo on our country, then anyway there will be some counter-agents and counterparts who understand what the real situation is. But even if it happens, the world economy will suffer. The global processes, global economic processes would suffer. Because you can implement those restrictions for some time, but later it becomes really expensive for everyone. So considering green transition worldwide and some other projects that would be really vulnerable for them. For now we are working in emergency, but we hope they won't be constant and they will put us on a trajectory of coming back to normal. You know, we lived through the pandemic and we had many restrictions of the ships coming to docks. We had many restrictions of the supplies. And that was not due to political reasons, but that happened. And we managed to live through. Sorry, can I interfere? So, as far as I understand, most of your hopes are connected with the interests of the business within Russia and within foreign countries. And that was some kind of a result of coming out of a pandemic when supply chains they have been restored due to business, and that's where we should work and we should have investments, right? Right. But for business to be working, our government tried to effectively and vulnerably work with business enterprises, and we were trying to find out where they needed support, and business on their own, if the state doesn't react to the opportunities of coming out of these difficult situations like pandemic or sanctions for now, business on their own, they won't be able to implement it. Cooperation of business and government, that's what we should save. And I'm really sure that that is a good cooperation. I wouldn't like to compare pandemic and the situation worldwide now. But we can anyway say that we could test ourselves during pandemic. Okay, thank you a lot. It's clear that the efforts of business are positive in this sense, and they are aimed at saving this business cooperation, and we hope that these participants online and offline, they would be able to discuss and come to some solutions.
Уже слышали много про и общий глобальный повестку, и вызовы, которые стоят, и необходимость потребность в новой инфраструктуре, инвестициях,
and the finances needed for that. What
you
quite often say about the challenges which stand in front of the country and Siberia in particular. So the logistic chains are changing. So what we've talked about, so the chains of added value. So how do you see the situation? How can we adapt to this changing reality? And maybe so we should reorientate the whole production to east, or is it a correct place to implement new key projects here inside Siberia as a source of intensive development, financial development, or there are some other means? Thank you. Well, so we've heard the previous speaker. So this is actually quite full recommendations. And I think that we haven't faced such a challenge. Well, as for me, so I understand it better than anyone, how and what are the real opportunities. When people are saying about that we have this iron curtain, so it's actually we have an iron curtain, so this is a fact. And actually, so I was asked not to speak on this topic, and I would really like that we would have peace first. That the fire would cease, that every day we have it, and this is a loss, a great loss, and actually we had a huge work done on this program of integration of all projects of Siberia, the huge work, Mr. Shoigu, the governor of the Krasnoyarsk region. Well, actually, so this was a really good map, was a really good map for all the project, for the actions. Well, of course, we are going to leave, and nobody will, and the
надежда на западный бизнес, что он скажет свое слово. Российский бизнес должен будет сказать свое слово. Можно будет закончить
and business will interfere somehow, and we can finish this topic of state capitalism, state banks. In 3 weeks, we will see so what state of them, and for the regions. So we need this structural independency. So and some independent financial institutions, they must be decapitalized, because there will be no point to go into Moscow when these questions are over limits. For example, like this interest of 20%. So can you say that in Bratsk mortgage by 22%, it means that the construction will stop. So you know so how the constructors do, the developers, so they have these special accounts, and the priority is to stop. I don't want to call it any names, and the faster we stop this situation, to see this program, to consider this program from the point of who will be left of our partners, I think that we will be really surprised when we see how many of them stayed. I think that it will be like just a few of them. But we must stop the decline of economy, so everything that was said is correct, about the infrastructure, about gasification, about the including reducing of carbon footprint, the importance of processing. But we need to open this Iron Curtain again. And of course, the first step is peace. The second step, well, we must honestly discuss where we live, how or not, what conditions, who commands what, and what are the risks for everyone, for each. We must support the population. I'm really against of these cruel financial pressing. So the population is not guilty. So we must ease it. So we must see what is going on. So to take some position. And I'm sure that the interests of Russia in the future, they are in Asia. So we have an economy, 18 billion in China, only in China. And if you will see the other West, so they don't want us. So we must forget about them. We must build another country, so based on other conditions. And unfortunately, so we can't move further than Brodsk city. So we have no infrastructure. So we must create the infrastructure which will produce the construction materials and other important components. So we must do it here. So Eastern Siberia is an important step to begin development of Far East and actually so go into the Eastern market. Not but just raw materials, but with processed materials. And of course, we need to change the management system. I always said that it seems like utopia. So why do we have capital in Moscow if all interests are in Asia? And there is another time for the missiles coming, and everything will be different. So if the capital will be like in Novosibirsk, for example, or Krasnoyarsk. So we're not ready to make this step. So let's relocate part of the management. So we have new banks, new financial institutions. So what is the point to go in Moscow for simple things? This is the lesson we have. And as I wanted to say for myself, I actually made a lot of conclusions, and I would love to share them. But at first, I want peace. And of course, we continue this program. So what kind of program it will be? So with what speed? But we can only say only in 6 months. Well, frankly speaking, I don't think that we will be able to assess it really. So the crisis is for at least for 3 years. It's like the level of 1998 crisis triple times, and the exit of this crisis, considering the experience we got and understanding what has come, so we will find the way out. But anyway, but the first step is actually compromising and getting to peace. Thank you very much. So let's use the last 5 minutes. I would have a change in our plenary session. I would like to those who are here, speakers, so concerning and focusing on the economical and social questions, because we're here in Krasnoyarsk Economic Forum, and first of all, so the economy of the future in Krasnoyarsk, so maybe so 1 or 2 thoughts or your suggestions or necessary decisions that must be made for the implementation of.
Thank you a lot. So in fact, Krasnoyarsk Economic Forum initially was formed as the Forum for the Development of Siberian Territory. And I would like the topics and issues sound out, not be connected with Krasnoyarsk only, but with some other territories of the region. For example, here we have the governor of Kuzbas, the head of Caucasia, and I would like to discuss the topic of the development of Siberia as the overall topic. And Oleg Deripaska is, of course, right here for us to speak about the coming days, about tomorrow, that is, first of all, setting peace. But which peace and which world? The peace and world we had today, we will never be able to have it once again. But so coming to my words, we are strong with our own unity of the nation. And for us to move on dreaming about the development of Siberia and our country, it's important to support our president. And what's more important, that the peace is set. So, we are having forum, and forum, that is, of course, the platform for the dialogue. And, of course, all the participants should be included, state and business, and we need peace, of course, because it decreases the consequences of crisis and it makes the development more effective. I would like to wish all of us for the crisis to pass, and which will definitely come. And I would like all of us to really understand, to have all the necessary resources to develop Siberia and Arctic, to understand that the future is here. So, considering the words that we mentioned, one or two theses. Oleg, once again, you. So, first of all, we should make the cash inflow into the economy. So 3 months shock of the whole economic financial system, it should be stopped. Mortgage, if we have lesser interest rate, we would still have construction. But if we have the interest rate in the mortgage of 20%, then we won't have any kind of construction, so contractors or whichever. And so mortgage, that is important. So mortgage, that is important. And I'm always asking a question, how can a mortgage of 5% in Krasnoyarsk can influence the incomings into Moscow? And if there are the problems with consumer inflation, then the agriculture should be subsidized and loaned as well. So if fuel and fertilizers would go higher for now, then agriculture should be subsidized. And if we still have this idea for everybody to restrict and to say the population that you should wait for the coming years. Yesterday I heard that if the mortgage in Siberia for 5%, then the industry would get the loans for 40% of interest rate. And for me, you see, that is the first important issue here. The banks are in a heavy crisis for now. Considering the foreign ministry and the issues they discuss, that is like precondition, prerequisite. So the world won't be able to live without us. But we should say our population that they would have to live without everything. I'm saying about leasing, about everything.
Я не люблю Эльвиру Сейхабизадовну. Ну, у меня к ней абсолютно ровные, нормальные отношения. Просто у нас разные интересы, как вы говорите, диалог. И сейчас их дело сделать так, что крупный бизнес, это понятно, так сказать, отдельный вопрос.
For the large
Малый,
business, we
средний
understand
бизнес,
everything, but for the small business, for the medium business, for the mortgage, for all the projects connected with the agriculture, for the minimum changes of utility sector, roads, infrastructure, transport infrastructure, that's what they, for now, be working with. Only in this case we would be able to stop the crisis. We have already tried doing all of that in 1990s. As for the unity, you know, yesterday I spoke to one priest, and he told me to read a poem of Maximilian Voloshin, Civil War. Please, read it out, that's important. Thank you a lot. Briefly, please.
С моей точки зрения,
as for my point of view,
первая проблема, которая, так сказать, должна быть решена для ускоренного развития Сибири, это многократное увеличение инвестиций
that is a high investment to the development of logistics and transport infrastructure, 10 or 20% more, and that should be done immediately and promptly, including ships and docks. What is the situation for now? Out of 4 container suppliers, 2 blocked, fully blocked Russian ships. Not only Western countries, but other countries as well. And the only supplier and shipper which we have for now, that is the Chinese one. And for now we have a long queue, everything is blocked. We should invest into the vessels, into the marine industry, so railroad, automobile roads, and this is what we should definitely have to develop Siberia industrially, because if we have 2 million ton cellulose production plant here, and we would increase the production of the timber, we would physically be unable to promote it, and that is really important. The second issue is, to develop Siberia, we should construct new cities or new districts of these cities, but the quality of these residential areas, that should be new. These should be beautiful areas for the people to be able to love coming here, so it can be somewhere near economic and financial city centers like Lesser Sibirsk or something of that kind. And the third thing, that is development of the industrial enterprise like cellulose plant, of course, and the government support here is especially important. And the investments into the share capital is the most significant.
Буквально 2 слова, если возможно.
Just a couple of words, just Vladimir. I would like to join Oleg Deripaska that if we're speaking about medium-term prospects, we should deal with the investments. But if we speak about coming weeks, these are weeks when we will have to stop the financial shock, the storm we are having for now. And only strict monetary measures can help here. Yeah, further, I will be on the side of the industrialists, as I have such a kind of education myself, but for now we have a different time. So we need first to help monetarily and financially. So forum, that is a platform to share the views. Alexander Us. please finalize our discussion for today. Thank you a lot. Thank you a lot to all of you for your patience, for you moderating the session and showing your diplomacy and intellect. The plenary session was as it was. We had different opinions shown, and the discussion was quite diverse and various. We had political discussions and concluding by particular ideas on the enterprises. I can say definitely about the future of our region, but finally I would like to speak about the organizational moments. Victoria Abramchenko said that in the coming future, and I hope that it will happen in a month, there will be a strategic session headed by the Prime Minister of the Russian Federation, with the directions to be discussed which were to be implemented. And of course there will be some corrections. I think that we need at least 2 weeks to finally understand what's happening and what prospects we can really aim at. But anyway, I would like to ask all the participants of this plenary session and the leaders and captors of our business who are involved in our business strategy to speak about particular ideas and proposals within this current situation, so that they, in particular, could implement within their companies to develop Siberia and the Russian Federation on the whole. Mikhail mentioned such a kind of a problem as blocking the supplies of equipment to work in wood processing industry. And Mikhail said that we should have long started thinking about this. So who should do that? I suppose that the Sigeja group can start thinking how they can start doing this work, taking into account financial opportunities, understanding the demands, and setting the conditions which are necessary from the governmental side. And that's what should be done by Rusal company and Rusnickel. Nikolai, of course, putting sturgeon in the Yenisei River and Arctic Museum, that's nice. But what are new strategic targets of the company, considering IT sector and considering searching for the ways to find new solutions in the Siberian region? And I'm sure that these opportunities can be found. So please, let's move on with that discussion and the search for solutions for the issues we have. And I'm sure that the captains of the Russian business, these are really high qualified people and patriots of Russia.
Спасибо всем участвовавшим и выступившим на этой сессии. Спасибо всем, кто
and thank you to all of those who have come here to listen to the participants and to listen to the plenary session. So the session was really diverse with different opinions made, but that's what we need the forum for, to have a dialogue, to have a discussion, and to find some common solutions to the challenges we have. Thank you a lot.